Let's talk about what Texas Capital Bank brings to banking. Let's start with expertise and keep going. Let's talk about your expectations, then exceed them. Let's talk about a shared vision and see it through together. Let's talk about a relationship that grows beyond the numbers. Let's talk about why clients stick with us even in the toughest times. We offer the know-how you expect from a bank and more. Talk to an expert today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I know that all those raffle tickets kept you all in there, right? So anyway, good, everybody feeling inspired and motivated today? We have now moved into the afternoon, okay? And I have to tell you this next panel or this next group of women, you're really going to be truly inspired. So I have the honor of introducing Ana M. Alvarado. She is the Chief Legal Officer in Corporate Security of Texas Capital Bank and its parent company, Texas Capital Bank Shares. She is responsible for supervising and coordinating all legal services for that company, serving as a key legal advisor to the board of directors, ensuring legal compliance with all the securities laws, banking regulations, and serving as the lead legal advisor to all firms' strategic initiatives and commercial and transactional matters. Ooh. So you see, Latinas are influencing at a very high place, and Ana is a great example of that. She's also a member of the firm's operating committee. Her strengths include merger and acquisitions, executive management, talent development, corporate and public company governance, ESG, public relations, and board management. Ana was recently selected as among the top 100 most influential Latinas by Latino Leaders magazine. She's also being accompanied by her beautiful mother, Maria, today, so welcome. So I'd like to bring to the stage Ana M. Alvarado. Welcome music, please.
Thank you, Yvette. Happy to be here. And again, to all those who served this country, happy Veterans Day. I've got about 70 first cousins, and at least 30% of them served in the military or currently serving. So thank you to all of our fellow veterans. Again, Yvette, University of Houston, thank you for being here on behalf of Rob Holmes, our CEO, and Texas Capital Bank. It's truly an honor to be here today, and especially more of an honor to have a chat with Paula Mendoza, my new girl crush and my new best friend. So, and since we are celebrating heritage and where we come from, a shout out to my mama right over there. She raised this. She is from Michoacán, Mexico. And right, yep. And then my dad passed away. He is from Jalisco, Mexico. So like many of you, first generation Mexican-American, oldest one in my family, first one to go to college, and then some. So again, and without further ado, let me please introduce Paula Mendoza. She is President and Chief Executive Officer of Possible Missions and Possible Miss Inc. Possible Properties, LLC. Native Houstonian. By the way, Paula's mom, may she rest in peace, Donna Juana, is from Jalisco as well. And so we have that in common as well. So, you know, a lot of us share a lot of things in common. So again, native Houstonian, Paula is an entrepreneur, innovator, advocate, barrier breaker, and tireless volunteer, recognized not only for the quality of her work, but for the passion she brings to every endeavor. Under her leadership, Possible Missions, a company she established in 2001 specializing in procurement solutions, has experienced exponential growth, beginning with only $100 in her bank to achieve over $90 million in revenues. The business has achieved significant accolades. Most recently, Mendoza has been named the most admired CEO and executive of the year by the Houston Business Journal and earned the Hispanic Hero Award by Comcast. She has been named one of the top 30 most influential women of distinction and a woman on the move. Under Mendoza's leadership, Possible Missions was awarded the U.S. SBA 8th Graduate of the Year, Houston Minority Business Council Supplier of the Year Award, and a Minority Business Enterprise Accountability Award for its expenditures with fellows MBEs. The U.S. Small Business Administrators Award of Excellence and the UT Alliance Hub Contractor of the Year, to name just a few. Possible Missions also maintains a prestigious ISO 9001-2015 certification. Paula's humility, discernment, and sense of fair play are evidenced by her service, serving as the first Latina to serve as the chairman of the State of Texas Ethics Commission, the first Latina to be appointed to the University of Houston System's Board of Regents, only the second Latina to serve in the 30-year history as the chairman of the Texas Association of Mexican-American Chambers of Commerce, naming only a few of her leadership roles and a few of her awards. I told her she needs a whole special room in her house for all of the accolades and the awards that she gets. So you talk about being a disruptor. Please help me welcome Paula Mendoza. Here's your mic.
As if I need it.
All right. So, Paula, obviously the theme of today is a few of them, but one of them is being a disruptor. Can you briefly, and you obviously have an impressive resume, clearly have achieved a lot. Can you go back and let us know sort of the first time that you felt that you were a disruptor, and did you know it then?
So thank you for the question, and welcome everybody. And I just want everybody to see my pen because I'm a proud alum of UHD. So I'm happy to be here at UHD as well. I think, yeah, there you go. I think I really didn't know early on that I was a disruptor or that I wanted to go on to be an entrepreneur. I knew that there were a lot of traits that I was learning would head up to something in my career, in my future, but I always thought it'd be working for someone. But I think when I fast forward to corporate America, we talk about, now all the DEI things that are going on and the inclusion of small business and that. And when I joined corporate America, my job was to go out and find smaller companies to do business with larger companies. And I was going all across the country. It was a beautiful job. But I was out there asking those small companies to bid on big work, right, with big corporations. And I was putting my reputation on the line. I was saying, bid, do some national work with us, come bid. They would spend time and energy to do that. And the next time I saw them, they'd say, hey, what happened to my bid? I spent a lot of time. Hey, what happened to my bid? Hey, I thought you were going to give me some work. And so I didn't quite feel like the corporation was as sincere as I was about working in the diversity group and bringing small businesses. So I think that was the first time I sat back and said, you know what? I'm going to quit corporate America. And I'm going to go out on my own because I think I can do this just a little bit better if I'm on my own and I can make my own decisions. So I think that might be really the first time.
Can you talk about that feeling of leaving and making that choice of leaving corporate America? What did you do, if anything? Who did you talk to?
Yeah, so I heard you say a little bit about my mom, and God rest her soul, and her and my dad, we had great parents and they're no longer with us, but it was really funny because I think in all the talks today, you also heard about how I have to tell my mom or I have to tell my dad. And it doesn't matter how old we are, right? We still got to tell mom and we still got to tell dad. And again, I was with corporate America. I had a great expense account traveling all over the United States. And the first thing I did is I went to my parents, sat them down, and I don't know what they were thinking, but I said, Mom and Dad, I'm going to quit my job. And their faces just, what are you thinking? We had a really, how should I say it? We weren't poor, but a very limited upbringing, right, and finances. And so they were just, they couldn't believe it. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Within 30 seconds, it just took them that long for the shock to wear off. And they said, whatever you want to do, we will support you. So then I went to my husband and I said, I think I'm going to quit my job. And Mom and Dad said it was okay. So, and at the time, had a son in high school, and he said, oh, okay. And then he said, okay, I think you can do it. If you can do it, you can do it. But what I did do, which I think is important, is I also heard, I think, Yvette, don't everybody go out on Monday and quit your job. I did plan. So I told my corporate job that I was leaving. They were gracious. They gave me 30 days. I went out and tried to secure contracts before I just quit my job because I wanted to earn my keep as a Latina in a household. I wanted to make sure that I could pay my share, pay my way, right? As Latinas that we are. And so I went out and secured 3 contracts that were enough to pay my share of the bills, right? I wanted to make sure. And this might be funny to some of y'all, but I did do it. I bought 6 months worth of toiletries. I had to make sure that I could pay my share of the bills and that we had enough toiletries for 6 months. I kid you not. My husband was like, what are you doing? But for me, that was security, right? It was security to know, okay, we don't have to run into it. And that's where we were at the time. I mean, we were living paycheck to paycheck. I had that good corporate job, but it wasn't all that when it comes to salaries we were getting at, you know, as a female. So that was scary. That was, how can I leave this good job? And it was a good job, but it also taught me that I could do things differently and do them on my own. It was crazy scary.
I can imagine. So, you know, another thing that we all have in common are really just strong parents, whether it was just your mom or your dad, who really just want the best and have sacrificed so much for all of us, right? And along those lines, I would just like to share a little bit. My mom has a 3rd grade education and my dad a 6th grade education. They were both Mexican immigrants picking grapes in the San Joaquin Valley. I started doing that, right? And so the only thing I ever wanted was to just have an office job. I knew eventually I'd be a lawyer, right? And I knew what the end game was going to be. But that hard work that all of us have from our roots, you know, is such an asset. But, you know, hearing your story can also be a little bit of a hindrance because you had to go back and talk to your mom and parents. You're leaving a perfectly good job, right? You're being perfectly, you have healthcare benefits. You've got this great salary to do what again? Go on your own, right? But again, it's a little bit of that fear and that insecurity, right? That we all sort of have kind of grown up with. And so we all learn at some point to overcome. And, you know, I don't think you could have done what you've done without being, you know, taking risk. And I would like to just change the narrative a little bit. You know, risk is not a bad word. So I prefer being strategically bold, okay? Let's use that. Let's be strategically bold. And I'll share just one story about the first time that I remember, you know what, I can do this. I left California, my perfectly good paying accounting job, right, with benefits and everything, to go to Texas, to go to SMU Law School because I got accepted there. And I had 2 choices. I could either go and continue to have a safe job in accounting or not and just be a legal intern, law clerk somewhere. And so at the time, I was looking for a house, and my real estate agent said, you should go talk to so-and-so at this law firm. You know, they're the best trial litigation firms. So she called them and said, hey, I know this person. And he's like, yeah, I'd like to meet her someday. The very next day, I went to that law firm office. And I said, hi, I'm here to see so-and-so. And the secretary is looking at me like, do you have an appointment? I said, no, but he said that I can come stop by anytime and say hello, right? So she calls him, and she says, you have a Miss so-and-so here to see you. And then I can tell what they were talking about. And she says, okay. And she said, well, it's going to be a few hours. I said, that's okay. I will wait right here. And so I went. Eventually, I saw him. He kind of grilled me a little bit. He was a lawyer. I felt like I was, you know, under an inquisition. And in the end, he said, I'd like to hire you, but I just, you know, you don't have experience and I can't hire you. And I said, that's okay. I understand. I appreciate the opportunity. He's like, but let me have you talk to my other partner. Right, so I did, and I managed to convince that partner to give me a job then and there. So I walked out with my first legal job, just kind of being just strategically bold and, you know, saying, what's the worst that can happen, right? I get kicked out and I get said no. So back to you and going back and starting that. After you started that, what was the boldest thing you did in your business? And that, I don't know, maybe it's a key account or maybe you responded to something. What was that moment in your business where you know this is never going to be the same again?
I like the strategically bold. I do, because I'll tell you I'm not a risk taker, but if you own your own business, you're a risk taker every day you wake up in the morning. Every day you sign the payroll check. But I think for me, it was when I left being just a consultant or just having a couple of people on the payroll here and there, contractors, is when I actually started hiring people. It felt like a responsibility for me to hire someone, because then I was going to be responsible for them and their household and if they had children. And it's just, I think it's our nature to feel that way. And so for me, hiring employees in our company was, it just felt like a huge responsibility, something that I had to look at and say, how do I do this? How do I maintain it? And then how do I continue to go out there and get more business while I'm trying to maintain payroll and the business and everything else this is going on. Yeah.
Do you remember a time, and I mean, maybe you have many, where you just sort of sat back and say, I don't know if I can do this?
Every morning when I get up. No, I do. And we joke about it, but really when you own your own business, every day is something different. And I love that. But looking at it from that respect, yes, there was a project that came our way. And a friend of mine had the contract and he said, hey, I need somebody to take over this contract. I'm done. I'm going to move on. And I said, yes, I can do it. And I had to sit back and think about it. I came from the staffing agency with one of my mentors before I started my own company. And what I didn't realize is that we were going to have to hire 500 full-time employees within 60 days. 500 employees, 3 shifts. The pay was back then $8 an hour. This was in 2011, 2012. And they were assembly workers, but 500 of them. So that was, I come from the staffing. I can do that. We can go to the Workforce Commission. We can do this. We can set up shop at the Fiesta grocery stores and hire people. I was very confident until we were putting together our first payroll. Our payroll was $325,000 a week. A week. I didn't have a line of credit. I didn't have any savings. It had just been 3 of us before that. So when you talk about a challenge and thinking, how am I going to do this? And the best thing about it is I've heard throughout the day is how you surround yourself with people, how you surround yourself with people that can help you, how you ask for help. I had to ask for help. I had to call the banker. I had a lawyer that had to review the contract. I didn't have one. I had to go out and get one. And most importantly, that banker, I had to say, as soon as I deposit this client's check, you cannot put a hold on it because payroll is the next day. But when you look at that, you don't make payroll. People don't pay their bills. They can't eat. They can't, provide for their kids. So that was a huge, huge responsibility. But we did it for 12 months and never missed a payroll. Never missed a payroll. So that to me was when you get out there and say, I can do this. And then you figure it out. You just figure it out. That's how we do.
And you're right, and that's sort of a reoccurring theme too, as I've sat here throughout the entire morning and listened to these fabulous panelists and these fabulous Latinas, where I don't care how successful you get or how high you get within an organization, there is always, always, always that self-doubt. And, and relating to that too, the law firm that first gave me my job, I was the first Latina trial lawyer that mid-law firm had. After that, at First Caps, my previous company, I was 10 years, the first Hispanic executive that public company ever had. And in every one of those roles, Texas Capital Bank, the first named Hispanic executive officer the bank has ever had, right? I got into those roles and say, did they hire the right person? Like, that self-doubt. But then, right? But then, that goes for all of you. But then, you think, you have earned the right to be there. We have earned the right to be there. I have clawed, scratched, fought my way for every inch of ground that I walk on. So when I have that, I step back and I say, I've earned the right. So again, for all of you, do me a favor. Let's do all of us a favor. Instead of that self-doubt, let's reprogram that and say, I have earned the right. And don't let qualifications hold you back, because if that were the case, I think nobody would go anywhere, right?
I agree with that. And I have an example of that. And sitting here at UHD, and I'm such a proud double alumni of UHD. For those of you that are undergraduates here, it took me 12 years to get my undergraduate degree, my 4-year degree, right? At night, weekends, credit cards, you name it. So I can appreciate the scholarships you give out. So I understand that. But one of the things that I unfortunately talked myself out of going to law school. I didn't think I was smart enough. This was 20, 25, 30 years ago. But that has haunted me almost every day. But I will tell you that I'm a proud, a recent former regent of the University of Houston system. But in order to be appointed, you have to go through several interviews. And so regents interview you, the chancellor interviews you, everybody interviews you, right? And for this one position. And I remember this, and that's when I thought to myself, you've got to be in. I'm sitting in an interview, and a person of color was interviewing me, which I thought, we kind of feel like, okay, we can embrace this. They're going to be good to us. And one of the things he said to me that stays to me till this day, he said, you do realize that you're the only, if you're appointed, you're the only regent that doesn't have an MBA. And I just like thought to myself, are you kidding me? Now back then when I was talking to him, I did. I sat back and I thought, are you kidding me? I've gotten to this point.
Do you know how many awards she has? She's sitting there thinking,
have
do
you
you
been
know who
to
I am?
But it did. It took me aback. I thought to myself, wait, I had to do a lot of things to get to this point. And I took that, and you know, I love it if I had really good comebacks at the time, and I didn't, and I should have. But I will tell you that education is something that no one can take from you, but you also use it for your advantage. You also use it to get ahead, whether it's in corporate America or to be able to get specialization in things. But when I came back to UHD to get my master's degree, I had been out of school 25 years, but I decided, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I applied without them knowing that I was part of the system at the time and was accepted. And I did it for two reasons. I have a lot of young employees, and I thought, if I can do it, you can do it. And I meant that because it was pretty darn hard. But the other thing is that ain't nobody going to tell me that again. They're not. I'm going to make this happen. And I did. I invited that person to my graduation. I don't know if he remembers, but I just looked at him and I just held up my degree in my you know, and I thought to myself, it made me feel better. It made, for all of the students that were graduating that day, I thought to myself, I didn't have to do this. I did it this time because I wanted to do it, right? But no one can ever take that from you, so.
I love that story because I think a lot of us can relate to those moments of you feel that flash of anger, right? And that emotion. And, you know, that can be also a good motivator, right? One of my favorite things that can happen to me is please underestimate me because this is going to be fun, right? And so were there other, let's call them motivators. How about that? Yeah. Let's call all our haters motivators. How about that? All of our haters are motivators. I had a little experience like that early on at the bank, and there was a small leadership committee, and somebody said something about, oh, you're Hispanic, and we were like, yeah, and you can tell it was a little bit of an undertone. So it's a round table, and CEO sits right in the middle, and that person was sitting next to that CEO, and I went in there and I sat right next in that seat, right next to the CEO, and I look at Rob and I said, let's do this, Rob. And then looked at that other person and said, yes, this just happened, right? So can you think of other instances or scenarios or stories where, look, you've obviously very, very successful, where somebody made you feel like you didn't belong or less than, and how did you deal with that?
Yes, exactly. So when I first started out my business, I told you there was one of me, and I had a contractor working with me. And so I wanted to get out there and help these small businesses. I was going to help them, whether it was their infrastructure, whether they needed to find an accountant, I was going to do that. And it just so happened that I was doing some things around the construction industry. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I drove up to this plumbing company, and it was a Hispanic gentleman that owned the company and spoke all Spanish. And so I walked in there and I said, told him who referred me to come talk to him because he was doing great work. He was a fabulous plumber, but when it came to the infrastructure, he didn't know how to invoice, or he didn't have somebody capable in the office. And then he had family. And so I said, let me help you. Let me show you how I can help you. And in Spanish, he said, little girl, I don't know how you can help me. And I thought to myself, well, I'll show you. So I went and found one of his competitors that needed help. I did. This is a little bit long ago, but I did. And you know what I did? I helped him, and I helped his infrastructure. And one of the things he did is he went and took another contract from him. But because he could, and because his infrastructure was sound, and because he took the advice and he asked for help, he let me help him. I went back and then helped that plumbing company. I did, after he could I guess, digest that this little Latina girl was going to help him with a plumbing company, a construction company. And I make jokes about it now, but it was pretty hurtful at the time. I walk with my head down back to the car thinking, well, maybe I can't help him, or maybe I can't do what I say I'm going to do. But it took me a couple of days, and then I went and said, I'll show you. And I did. I went back and helped him. But I think that was one of the things that I still think about this day, is that don't underestimate people. I love that. And, you know, I do remember this clearly when I was going for one of my government contracts. I was in there doing a presentation. Once again, now I had about 5 employees. I headed up to Alabama. I was going to give this presentation. And I had 2 gentlemen with me that I had contracted to help me because they were subject matter experts. In Alabama, I went to the Air Force and we sat there and we were giving a presentation, or we were getting ready to. I'm putting the PowerPoint together, putting it on the screen and getting all this ready, putting the packets out, because remember, it's not very many of me, right? So I'm doing all of the legwork in them. And the contracting officer looks over at one of the males in my office and says, well, we can get started now. Thank you for your help, and I'll take some coffee. I got him coffee. I went and got him coffee. I asked anybody else if they wanted coffee, and then I said, now we can get started. I'm the CEO of Possible Missions, and this is what we can do for you. And the smile on my face when I turned around and my back to them, I thought, I got you. It happens. It still happens today. It still happens today.
It does. It does. And again, I guess that's the other thing too. It never ever goes away. I think the more successful you are, the higher you get within an organization, like the louder the critics are, right? And so, so it doesn't get any easier by any means, right? And there's a lot more spotlight. There's a lot more pressure. But I always have to remind myself, look, there's privilege and pressure. I'm super privileged to be where I'm at and have had the experiences that I've had. Right. So, along those lines, in terms of you, Paula, and, feeling that pressure and now being in a place of privilege, like how do you use that, right? In terms of whether it's within your organization or out in the community?
Well, I just want to start off by saying that I had a lot of people that helped me along the way, right? All of these stories are about me, but I had a lot of people that were supporting me. And that's one of the things I think we should share with these Latinas that are here is that we do, and you should reach out and you should look at others to help you. And I mean, one of my mentors just was on the stage and got an award, Gracie Signs. And I can tell you all kinds of things about how she's helped me without tearing up here, but that's what we do as Latinas. Oh, we should do more of it. But I had mentors that were helping from different ways, political ways, from educational, different things in the community. But I think to me, we have to know where we're coming from. And then also, when you're starting to do different things is how do you get there? So somebody's helped me do this, somebody's helped me do that. Now what am I gonna do, right? And so one of my biggest things that I have now, I'm trying to structure my company to where I'm able to give back, which I've been fortunate to do financially, but now I want to focus just on scholarships. I think for me, that's so key. You were talking about your parents' education. My mom had a 6th grade education in Mexico. My dad didn't finish high school. I mean, they did what they could for us, but at the end of the day, if you see those young ladies on the stage and how grateful they are for a $1,000 scholarship to help them, to me, education is key. I help my employees. I help them in a lot of different ways, and I hope that they see that. But when they talk about going to college, let's talk. Let's sit down. Let's see how we can do it, because I think that will help them, and that will help us as Latinas also get that extra little, step, how we're doing things. It lets us be successful, and then lets us hold our head up just a little higher every time. So for me, it's giving back. I try to focus my, whether it's philanthropy or community service, to education and workforce development. Those are the 2 things that I'm really gearing the way I run my business so that I can give back in that way.
Yeah, well, it's important, and I know you're doing really great work, but didn't you do something special with your mom and an endowment? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Don't know if I can. My last year of being a regent, we didn't have mariachis at University of Houston. And with the help of many Latinos, it was the first time Latinos got together and donated money. But we created a mariachi program at the University of Houston. A couple of reasons why that's so important. One is we're a Hispanic serving institution. 2, I would be at the Mariachi Festival and A&M was there, Rice was there, Texas State was there, and I thought, what's going on here? And so I got together with this group, and we were able to establish a program. The other reason that's so important is because we were also able to get the support of the university for it to be a program in the music school. It's not just a student program. It is in our music school. So mariachis that are in the engineering program or in the architectural school or in law school, they can come to the music school and be a mariachi while they're pursuing their other careers. That's huge. And what I did last year, I was very fortunate that I started a nice endowment in my mother's name. And all of that money will go to scholarships for the mariachis. Whether they don't have books, they don't have enough to buy the trip to wherever they're going to perform, or for their tuition. And so that will continue to grow in her name. And it's one of the last things I was able to tell her before she passed on.
That's beautiful. And what's the name of the full endowment again? The full name?
Jamie Placencia Ruiz Scholarship.
That's good. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry.
Me too.
So there's a lot of women here that are in different stages in their careers, right? And so what would you tell them, right? Like, what would you want people starting off their career, barely starting something? What would you tell them? What would your advice be? What would you want them to know? What do you wish you knew back then?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is research. If you have a passion for something, do some research first. Know what it is you're getting into. But don't change your direction. If that is something you're passionate about, if you think it's something that you want to either create or you want to go manufacture, or if you want to sell our social media person, I don't know if she's in here, but what she's doing to bring our products to the forefront, then that's what you should do. Just do your research and make sure that your path is the way you want to go. And if it is, then you take that and run with it. I will tell you this. We need to find a positive word for failure. But many entrepreneurs fail. They're going to fail. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. My very first mentor, who set me up on my corporate career, I think she failed 3 times, had a divorce along the way. She maxed out her credit cards, and she ended up selling her company for millions and had time to mentor me along the way. So do your research. Stay true to yourself. Don't let anybody change your mind. If it's not right for today, it might not be right, but don't give it up. Continue to research, continue to work on that. And the moment will come where you'll decide, I'm going to do this 100%, and then give it your all. Don't let anybody talk you out of your dreams. Just don't do it.
So failure is an investment.
Oh, I like
How
that.
about that, right?
I need to be taking notes.
It's only a failure if we don't learn something from it or do something from it, right? And I think, so there's 2 routes here, right? I'm just an example of sort of the corporate America. I'm a walking disruptor. I'm not very shy about things, and, I'm not very scared about many things, and it's, worked out sometimes. Sometimes it hasn't worked out. But I think if I knew what I know now, and if I, would go back, I would probably say to myself and all of you is, you're your own obstacle. That's it. And nothing, and I really mean this, nothing is that complicated.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And as long as you have that in our roots, which is hard work, we really are unstoppable, unless, it's ourselves that we can't get out of the way, right?
Yep, I agree with that. Nothing's not that difficult except for law school.
No,
not going to do it.
I think I still have PTSD from law school, but to be fair, I was working full-time first year in law school. I was going to law school full-time, and I had my kid first year in law school too, right? But look, it goes back, a lot of it, he's like, well, that's kind of insane. How did you do that? But, we're all human beings. We're all very adaptable, right? And, even with all of that, you still have your eye on the prize, and you just don't get discouraged. So I don't see it as like, God, that's, how did you do it? It's more like, well, yeah, like what else was I going to do, right? Law school is hard, but it wasn't that hard, it's.
But you should do it if that's your, believe me, I will encourage you 100%.
You should definitely do it. And so, for me, on top of like having that skills, I think what's been a differentiator for me, and it goes for all of us here, I used to have a big chip on my shoulder because I'm like, I'm woman, I'm Latina, like people look at me differently. And then I just resolved it. I was like, you know what? It's my job to have people feel comfortable with me, no matter what that takes. And if I have a chip on my shoulder, it's probably 3 chips, really heavy, and nobody's going to see it. But that's kind of what motivates me too, right? And what also motivates me is, you ask me what I do, like, I get things done. I love to execute. Give me a crisis, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll fix things, right? Money's also really, really good. Don't get me wrong. And I know money's really good for you, Paula. So, along the lines of what gets you going? What really motivates you? Because the other theme I've seen on this panel is the most successful people, and the people who've gotten to where they're at, is they've figured out a way. They've figured out a way how to make hard things really easy, or how to solve a problem that they saw and nobody else saw, right? That's, I think, the running theme in terms of the most successful people. So what's your motivator? What gets you going?
Well, my initial motivation was when I left my corporate job and started my company. I always looked at my first mentor and thought, wow, how did she sell her company for millions? How did she do that? How can I do that? I never thought that, how can I do that? I saw her, but I just thought it was like, oh my God, wow. My biggest motivator is because we didn't, come from money. We were up in the North Side. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck. We didn't have benefits, none of that. So when people ask me how I've achieved success, or when I thought I had achieved success, is when then I was able to say I can take care financially of my parents. That was it. I've made it. I'm there. I was able to do that. I was able to take care of them. I took them on trips that they would have never gone to before. That's done. I'm done. That was it for me. Since have lost them, and now, there's other things, but to me, that was how we were raised, is that we had a strong work ethic, and that we took care of those that took care of us. And that, to me, as Latinas, but maybe even more as women, I don't know, one comes before the other, is that maternal instinct, I think, to go back and help your parents or be there for them. I mean, they give so much to us. So I think that for me is key. Yeah, the money, I'm so grateful, and we're so blessed that we can do the things that we do now, and I can take care of my grandkids are taken care of, but we can spoil them, and our goddaughter who we raised. So we're grateful that, but it came with a lot of hard work. That's the other thing, I think, when people say, oh, you've made it. Oh, you make all this money and your company's humongous and, you drive a nice car, but worked our butts off for it. I mean, we did, worked our butts off for it. I've been in business 22 years now. It hasn't all been fun and games. It's been fun, but at the end of the day, just remember, there's a lot of work to it, but there's also a lot of self-gratification that I've done this. A project would come my way and I'd think, oh, I can do that. And corporate America can't. Corporate America can't turn around on a dime. That's the flexibility that you have as a small business owner, is that you can turn on a dime. You can make things happen. You can make the decision, right? If you go in corporate America and say, I need to do this and I need to do it in 2 weeks, they're like, oh gosh, no, I got to go up the food chain. For us, think about it. I got the staff. I got the subject matter experts. Let's go for it. I want to also say a part of that, besides having mentors, is that when I did go back here to get my MBA program, as soon my first day driving to school, and I live 5 minutes from here, I was thinking, what the hell were you thinking? This has been 25 years since you've been in a classroom. Literally, what the hell were you thinking? But I will tell you that, going back to mentors and people that help you, I have one of my classmates sitting right here, Lori. There was a group of 8 of us that established such a bond in those 2 years. So for those of you that are still in school, and if you haven't, find people that you can associate with. They may not be in the same industry, the same business, but I tell you what, that bond will help with anything. We're still so close today. We have started a nonprofit together. We're on a WhatsApp thing, and those are the type of things that can help make you successful, is having those people around you that want care, that are there to help you. Earlier you said something about stop putting people down, or don't surround yourself with people that are negative. We text something and everybody's like, oh my God, that's the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're there to support one another. And one other thing, Miss Yvette sitting over here, years ago, I said, Yvette, I need a different word. I need a different word. I hate when people say, oh, you're so busy. I want to talk to you, but you're so busy. Or I want to come see you, but you're so busy. I said, yeah, I'm busy, but she said, you're being productive. And I've kept that for me till this day when people are so busy and I'm like, well, I'm a little busy, but I'm being productive while I'm busy too. And that to me, I think is something we need to think about is how are you spending your time? Are you doing something you want to do? Are you doing something that you like to do? And then at the end of the day, how are you giving back?
Yeah, well said, and I agree. And you touched on a couple of things, hard work and sacrifice. And yeah, sure, you're super successful, you're making a lot of money, but nobody sees sort of the underbelly of that, right? And usually I get a lot of questions like, what's work-life balance and what is that? And so I want to ask you about that a little bit. But for me, it's a myth. First of all, I hate that work-life balance. For me, it's what you nurture, and we're really good at nurturing both good stuff and bad stuff. But for me, it's like, what do you choose to nurture, right? And what you choose to nurture, there's a trade-off to that. There's a sacrifice that goes to that. So, I just knew I'd be the type of mom that was not going to be staying home, that was not going to be going to my, kids, all the games or any of that stuff. And I had to be okay with that, right? And I chose very early, I'm not going to feel guilty about that because I know what I love to do. Right? I know that I'm good at it. And if I'm happy, then my kids are going to be happy. And as a result, my 2 kids are my #1 fans, by the way. So, yeah. And so it's thank you. They're really good. So it's what you choose to, I chose to nurture that, right? And then, sometimes, a lot of times I was a better employee than I was a mom, certainly, a better employee than I was a wife. And so it's the ebb and flow. You can have it all, but I don't think you'd have it all at once, right? There's sacrifices and there's trade-offs. So, you are a clear example of having to do a lot of that. So with that said, and if you think about, the sacrifice and this work-life balance, like what would you want this audience to know about that? And what are...
Yeah. I think it's great that they're your biggest fans. That's hard to do with teenagers. So that's fabulous. I was fortunate. When I got married, I had a teenage son already. It was a ready-made marriage, I said. And he's the best thing that I can ever ask for. I wasn't blessed with my own children. However, when I started my company, my husband was working at the post office and I had a job and decided to go out on my own. And then we were blessed to have a little girl brought into our life, our goddaughter who we raised, and she's at Texas State, and we helped raise. And the funny part is I thought, how does this? I mean, our son's he's already out of college. It's just him and I. And now there's this disruptor in our life, and she's a little one. And you learn to adapt to those things. But it's your priorities, right? You need to know what's important. I'm a workaholic, and I always have been, but I was even more of a workaholic before her. But she brought that balance, if you will, back into my life to say, okay, I got to do this, but I have that. I want to make sure to do this, but I have to make sure to be there. And I tell you that I've made trips to and from Dallas in one day to come back to her volleyball game. I've gone to Austin to be in front of the legislature to try to advocate for stuff. And I'm driving back ferociously because she's got a basketball game or something. So you make time for those things that are important to you. But as Latinas, and you said it earlier, as mothers, don't apologize for that. Do not apologize for trying to make time for your children or your husbands or your families. I do it. I just block it on the calendar. I don't need to tell my clients where I am. I don't need to tell them what I'm doing. I don't need to tell them I'm leaving the office at 2 to be at a volleyball game at 3. I don't need to. I just block it out, and that's what I do. And that's how I managed a lot of what I was doing. And they said, well, why don't you tell them? I said, number one, I don't need to. And then 2, if your customer is a man, the first thing they say, oh, she's got to go to the basketball. Oh, her child is sick, or they're doing this. And you stop and think, yes. And that's, I'm making that happen. But I don't tell them. It's our business. It's how we manage things. And so I think that is, you get into the priorities of your life and what you're doing. And then what's most important.
So for the women here, what's the one piece of advice the best piece of advice that you've gotten from somebody that you would want them to know what you'd like to share with?
Stay true to yourself. Stay true to yourself. We question ourselves. We sit there, I can't do it. I'm too tired. I've got too much time. Don't give up on yourself. Don't do it. Take a break. It can be too, but don't do it. Stay true to yourself.
I agree, and I would probably echo that as well. And I think for all of us too, in any situation, just act as if. A lot of that is the attitude, and act as if. Act as if you've been there. Act as if you belong, because you do belong, right? And we can't do it alone. I know I stand on the shoulders of a lot of great, great, great women. And at least for me, that I'm in a position of privilege, and the people that I surround myself with, I'm a lot more empathetic about, going, hey, look, as long as you get the work done, go do what you have to do. I don't need to know. I'm right here. So that's a lot of us that, as we go throughout the organizations, there's little things that we can do that make a difference in the lives of the people that we work with. For me, what's super important is bringing your entire self to work. I could not be in an organization where I cannot bring all of me to work, right? And when that happens, I'm better and my team is better. So for all of you, empathy goes a long, long way, right? So back to your employees. I know you have a lot. What are some of the things that you provide to them that allow for, I guess, that understanding and maybe shared culture? Like, what are some of the things that you do for them that they can be their whole self in your organization?
So when I first started and I had employees, I was like, oh, no, they're going to come to work at 8. They're going to leave at 5. I'm not treating anybody differently. I shouldn't treat him different than her different than this different than that. I was just like, no, not doing it. And as you learn, as you progress within your company, I do think a lot of those things. I do. She's wrapping us up. I do. I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards and I got to wrap it up. But I will tell you what changed my whole focus is when my mom got sick. And I thought to myself, this is my world right here. I need to run my business, but she is my world. And we had her and my dad. And then the couple years later, before that, my brother passed. All of happening all at the same time. And I thought, this is where my mind is, and this is what I'm doing. I learned how my employees stepped up. I learned how they ran the business while I was gone. I was in the hospitals on the floor with my laptop working. Never did I hear them say, where have you been? What are you doing? They took care of business. That now changed my whole perspective on my employees, how I work with them. We just had somebody had a baby, and we have a playpen in the office. That little baby's running around, the little, but because I can, right? That's my business. The fact that, when somebody comes to me and says, I really want to go back to school, and let's sit down, let's talk about it. What does that look like? Do you need half days off? Do you need Monday, Wednesday, Fridays off? Let's talk about it if we can do it. The one biggest accomplishment I think I've done in my company is that we started an employee profit sharing. So I want them to know the harder you work, the more money we can make together. So that's one of the things that we've done. But I try to be a good employer because, they're there. They're making me money. They're working for me. I want to give back to them and help them have a better life. And if they leave because they've done well and got a better job, fabulous. But I feel like I've kind of given back. 2
rapid fire questions, I promise, and we'll wrap it up. Question number 1, if there was a story made about you, what would the title be? Maybe not so quiet.
Grateful. That I'm grateful. That would be my title, that I'm grateful.
Okay. What song makes you instantly happy?
I was listening to on the way over here, Uptown Funk.
There you go. And on that note, Paula, it's such a pleasure getting to know you. Yvette, thank you for connecting us.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for connecting us.
Phenomenal. And thank you guys all for sticking around and listening to us.
And I have my aunt here, too. So there she is.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for staying this long. I appreciate it. And wasn't that a phenomenal fireside chat? Okay. I loved every minute of it. So we have one more award and something else to give to our amazing ladies. Paula, we'd like to present you the Power Latina Award for 2022. So you've heard me say it throughout the day. Because of your greatness, you inspire the best in others. And I have to tell you, this lady inspires me to be my best. She was with me when I first started our very first Power on Heels event. And she was a mentor to one of our power circles, and she was there the whole day, and she's been with me ever since. And I'm so honored and privileged to have her not only as a friend, as a mentor, but just my inspiration. So Paula, I love you. And I have something for both of you. Yes, there's gifts. Okay, this one's for you. This one's for you. There's a special lady. Thank you, Rita. Thank you for being our Vanna White today. Yeah. So there's a special lady in our community. Her name is Laura Lopez Cano. She's an amazing Latina artist. If you have not met her, there is a special little gift in there for both of you from Laura. Isn't that crazy? Oh, that is from me to both of you. Okay, thank you. And Laura could not be here with us today. She's on mommy duty. But the minute I said I wanted to do something special for the two of you, she was the first person I thought of. And if you ever go to Paula's office, which I'm sure she'll welcome you, you will see that this is one of the most prominent artists in her entire office. So this is all over our office. I'm adding to your collection. So both of you. So thank you both. A wonderful round of applause to these wonderful ladies. So to all of you, I'm going to give the ladies a chance. Thank you so much. We're going to close out this event and invite all of you right outside because we have still the tienditas, and we also have an opportunity to still do the photo booth, and we have some fabulous mocktails for all of you from Goya Cares. So from all of us, our formal programming is over. Please join us outside for some refreshments and some shopping. Thank you.